Hey, what's up guys? It's Rick with the Digital Divide, and today I want to talk about Sony's failed handheld systems and kind of why I think they've failed and what they might be able to do to improve their success if they decide to jump back into it. Sony jumped into the handheld market back in 2007. They announced that their PlayStation Portable, or the PSP for short, was going to launch later that year during the E3 press conference. And this device was incredibly beautiful and sleek and had a lot of wow factor, especially when you compare it to the aesthetic design of something like the Nintendo DS, which also came out in 2007. And no offense to Nintendo, but this is one of the ugliest consoles I've ever seen in my life. It very much looks like a toy for children. Now, that design dramatically improved with the release of the Nintendo DS Lite, but it still paled in comparison to the Sony PSP, which really looked like a futuristic, adult-oriented electronic. And Sony's always had amazing talent when it comes to that, and they carried that over with the launch of the PlayStation Vita. Both of these consoles were not only incredibly powerful, and boasted a number of features that we'd never seen before in a handheld, specifically the Vita with the dual analog sticks and front and rear touchpads. It had 3G cellular data, an OLED screen. I mean, this thing was top of the line, built-in microphone. Even today in 2023, this thing is incredible. When you hold it in your hands, it still feels current today. It feels like something that launched this year. Visually, it was on par, almost, I think, with the PlayStation 3, and that was kind of the point of Sony's handhelds. Their whole concept was, we're going to give you a console experience in the palm of your hand. And that's what both the PSP and the Vita were designed to do. And again, if you put a game like Killzone, for example, up against any game on the Nintendo Switch today, I think this holds up pretty favorably. And this console was so far ahead of its time. It was a lot of fun. Both of these consoles had a robust gaming library and amazing graphics and really cool features and aesthetics. So you might be asking yourself, why did both of these consoles fail? Why did Sony abandon them? Well, I think one of the biggest reasons they failed is because their insistence on using proprietary memory. These memory cards were unbelievably expensive. If you look back on the launch cost of these, a 32 gig card for the PlayStation Vita would cost you over almost $120 at the time, which was just absurd. So it was prohibitively expensive to buy these cards, and the biggest one was only 32 gig. So when a card maxed out, you'd have to go buy another one, and eventually you reach the point where you're spending the same amount as you did on the console itself. This is still a trend today. Xbox, for example, if you want to upgrade your storage with them, you're going to spend about $200 to do so, and there is no other option. It's a proprietary contractual agreement they have with Seagate, and you're going to spend $200, which is a lot of money, especially if you have the Xbox Series S, for example. This costs almost as much as the entire system. In Microsoft's defense, if you have the Xbox Series X, the difference between the Vita and this situation is at least the X comes with 1 terabyte of storage already, so this is just optional. That is a lot of memory, but it made no sense for Sony to do that at the time, especially when you consider that during the PSP and Vita era, this is when Sony was really pushing their online digital platform. They made a lot of money doing that, so much so that they released the Sony PSP Go in October of 2009, and this thing didn't even have a UMD player, so your only option was to download games, and if you wanted to play those games, you had to buy that absurdly expensive memory card. So it just, the business model made no sense, especially when you consider that they make most of their money on software anyways. Companies like Steam, for example, and PlayStation, again, they get a 30% cut of the pie when they sell software on their digital platform. So it makes sense for them to allow the use of just standard micro SD cards and make it more readily available to consumers and easier for consumers to buy and download games off of their platform and kind of subsidize the cost in benefit of software sales. This is what Steam does with the Steam Deck. The other issue is they have a finite amount of development talent to grow new franchises and develop new games. If you have a split platform, then you have to cut your talent pool in half, and half of your development staff is working on the handheld and the other half is working on your dedicated gaming console in the living room. So you're never able to fully throw all of your development resources into one project or platform. There's a constant balance, which makes it really difficult. Nintendo had this same problem until they created the Nintendo Switch, which allowed them to consolidate all of their development resources, all of their amazing in-house development teams, and focus on one platform. And the PSP was never able to do that. So as a result, neither the PlayStation 3 or the PS Vita got the full backing of all of the development resources that Sony has available to it, whereas the Nintendo Switch does. Every game that they have gets the full development resources because it's the only platform that they currently have to support. And I think that's critical to the success of the Nintendo Switch, and I actually do think that that's something that could be plausible for Sony. Another contributing factor, I think, to the failure of Sony's platforms, and this is a minor one, is they focused on a lot of hardware gimmicks, like the back touchscreen for the Vita. Nobody needed that, and I think there's only a handful of games that ever used it. Even the front touchscreen, it's great for UI navigation, but when it comes to gaming, there's just no need for it in a portable, in my experience, unless you're using touch controls, which are horrible. And guys, kind of my whole reason for making this video is that there have been recent rumors and speculation that Sony is making another handheld, and it's gotten to the point where some publications have confirmed that yes, this is 100% happening. It's going to support 1080p at 60 frames a second, but upon further review, although it turns out to be true that this is happening, it looks like it's just going to be a streaming device only. It's not going to have dedicated hardware to render games natively on the system itself, which I think is a huge mistake. So the question remains, what can Sony do in the future to change this if they decide they want to get back into the gaming space? Well, I think they should really follow Nintendo's lead here and go with a platform that gives them the versatility of having all of their development resources pulled into it, but serves both the portable gamer and the non-portable gamer. So there's a lot of people who like to play games portably, there's a lot of people who just like to play games traditionally, but there's a lot of people in the middle that like to have the option to do both. And if they have one device that does all of that, then they can service the entire market, which is, I think, the way to go. The problem is that they can't take a step back in hardware, but they don't need to. Devices like portable GPU docks would be a great idea for something like the PlayStation 6. So if for their next console they wanted to have a portable device that could dock to your living room, and while it's docked, take advantage of a very high-end, super powerful GPU in the dock to output 4K gaming with ray tracing, they can do that, and then you can pull it off and get a lesser experience, something in line with a Steam Deck, for example. So you still have high-end visuals when you want it, and then when you want to compromise, you can have all of that functionality on the go. And I think with the launch of the Steam Deck, they've proven that that can be a successful option for gamers, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future. That's going to do it for me today. Thanks for watching, and as always, let me know what you think in the comments below.